Hello everybody and welcome to this week's episode of Analysing Anfield, your tactics and analytics podcast, courtesy of the Blood Red channel. I'm joined as always by David Hughes. How are you doing, mate?
I'm alright, mate, yeah.
You're going to ask who I am?
How are you, Josh?
Got a sore throat.
Yeah.
I've got my shivers on me today.
Yeah. This is the third podcast we've done in 24 hours. So
Yeah, well, that's probably why, yeah. But we're probably on for a shorter one today anyway, just because, a bit of a quiet week. We've got Crystal Palace on the horizon, but after that we've got Napoli, who, they're a team that we've already previewed, so we're not really going to bother too much with that. So we're going to be talking about Crystal Palace, and we're going to be talking about, we're going to be addressing the questions that we didn't get to last week. So, we'll get straight into it, and we'll start with, I think the perception amongst Liverpool fans at the minute is that, well, the perception amongst most of the league is that Crystal Palace are a really tricky opponents away from home, and that it's a potential banana skin and things like that. But I'm not exactly sure it's true.
No, I don't think it is, mate.
Because I watched City face them recently, and just complete dominance from start to finish.
Yeah. If you look at the recent records as well, certainly in the last season and a bit, they haven't got a great home record at all, really. I think a lot of the narrative behind that is the way they seem to have this loud fan base at Selhurt Park, but it doesn't seem to really add anything to their ability on the pitch from what I've seen.
No, I mean, just to capture it, I think they faced Chelsea already this season, and they faced City this season. One was at home, one was away. But, a combined total of 11 shots in those matches. So, only 5.5 per match. Based on that, faced Liverpool last season at the very start of the campaign. We beat them 2-0, and they only managed 8 shots against us on the day. I think we hit about 18 or so.
Yeah,
I just think it's not the fixture that people paint it out to be.
No.
It's like people paint it as though you're coming up against, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a
equivalent, like a Burnley, maybe.
Maybe just like a quick counter-attacking team that are really ruthless on the break, but I don't really think that.
No, they're not. I think the idea is with Zaha that they're meant to be, but it doesn't necessarily work like that. I had a look earlier, and they've only won 4 of the past 14 home league games, so it's not as if it's just top sides who are getting points there. It's everybody seems to be doing okay going to Selhurt Park, so home form ranked 16th this season. Last season, I think it was as low as 18th. It was really poor.
Yeah.
So I don't think Liverpool should be at all concerned about, any more than they would be normally.
I think they are a side that's generally suited to playing away from home anyway.
Yeah.
I think Liverpool, I could be wrong in saying this, but I think Liverpool's last league defeat at Anfield might have been Palace. City's was, I think it was Wolves, but beyond that, it might have been Palace as well. They do tend to do quite well away from home, but I don't know. I don't feel as threatened by them as I used to.
No.
I think it stems from Hodgson, to be honest. I think Hodgson's really inclined to just accept. I'm not sure if I was saying this to you this week or someone else, but I think he's too inferior. He's too happy to accept we're not as good. So we'll be happy to get out with a 2-0 loss.
Yeah, he's very risk adverse and bland in these games, isn't he? He's happy to just almost forfeit the result. And he reminds me a little bit in this sense. It might seem like a lazy comparison, but he reminds me a bit of Allardyce. Allardyce he works a lot with, and on the same way we talk about it, but statistics, and he goes with games that are difficult, or they're not likely to win. He shows little ambition to actually try and win them, and instead he'll almost forfeit them to the best extent you can, and try and just win the games that they should be. And Hodgson seems to be very similar mould in that sense.
Yeah, I think that's the key word. What you've just said there, ambition. I think he's almost scared of ambition. He seems to really be focused on managing expectations and things like that. Like I've watched each of his last two home performances against Manchester City. Both times they barely had a kick. Both times they were just bad for the majority. And after the match, he comes out and he says things like, "I'm not sure there was much more we could do." And he praises his team and things like that, and I just think to myself, like, have a go a bit more. I mean, obviously it sounds like a bit of a traditional dinosaur show.
No, I agree.
Have a go, but
well, you know, especially at home as well. Like, I was talking to our producer Guy, and he said that Palace have only scored 23 goals in the last 25 home games since the start of the 18-19 season. So, no, it doesn't just seem, they seem to never feel that. Under Hodgson, there never seems to be this like requirement to go out and win games, you know, that they kind of just almost a reactive side who kind of work on what the opposition do and what the opposition presents and see what they can get from out of the games.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example. I think another manager who is the opposite of that, when he perhaps shouldn't be, is Chris Wilder, for example. I've been impressed by some of the comments he's been saying, because he's like, you know, every match, we haven't got any points, we haven't won a game, kind of thing, and no matter how the status of the team, he still expects to win every week, and Hodgson's very different in that regard. Obviously, it'll benefit Liverpool, I suppose, because he won't be inclined to attack us, really. Like he was in charge, when he was in charge of Liverpool, I vaguely recall a comment when we weren't doing so well, he accepted that Liverpool may be in a relegation battle. Yeah. And you just can't do that.
I always remember him saying, after Liverpool just being beaten in the Merseyside derby 2-0, and he said, yeah, Everton are what we aspire to be.
Did he say that?
Yeah, which is, you know, it's wrong on so many levels, really, for the Liverpool manager to say that.
Yeah, I remember Moyes said that about City.
Yeah.
Having just lost, like, I don't know, 3-1 to them or something.
Yeah, when he was United manager.
Yeah.
And it's just that, but it does sum him up. And
I think he's got a perfect job at the minute. The job's ideally suited to him, because I think all Crystal Palace are interested in at the minute is just consistent safety, mid-table,
solidity,
mediocrity, if you like. And I think he's really good at doing that without pushing up further and without dropping below a certain level as well.
Yeah, because that's the thing. They do tend to pick up points when they need to, or against the sides that they should do. Or I don't know. I'm not sure I'd enjoy it at my football club.
No, same. I mean, just delving into actually the specifics of the match and what to expect, I think one obviously quite glaring issue is Zaha up against Trent Alexander-Arnold. That's obviously an area that is a bit of a concern. Microphone episode again. But that's obviously an area that's a bit of a concern. Chelsea faced him recently, and Lampard dropped Azpilicueta and brought in Reece James specifically because he's just a bit more youthful, a bit more mobile, a bit more capable of dealing with Zaha. And Liverpool haven't really got that luxury at the minute. We've got Joe Gomez, I suppose, but considering what I've just said about Palace and how the emphasis will be on Liverpool to break them down, I think it would be mad to drop Trent, although Zaha may cause him problems.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that battle plays out. I thought the one with Reece James is really good, and there was examples of Zaha getting the better of him, but James also got the better of him quite a few times, and it was really interesting to watch. And I think in terms of Trent versus Zaha, I don't know if it's a concern, it's more of a test, I think. This will give us an indication of how good defensively he is, because we've not been critical, that's too extreme of a word, but we have questioned his defensive capabilities, haven't we?
Yeah.
And we don't know where they rank, and if he was to come out and have a really strong performance against Zaha, then you'd start taking him a lot more serious in that aspect of his game.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, you absolutely keep him in the side just because of what he brings on the offensive side of the game, which we're obviously going to need against this type of team. It's just, for me, Palace are obviously heavily reliant on Zaha to get them up the field, and I think up against a Trent, he will be allowed to do that. Having said that, I don't think Zaha is as dangerous as people portray him to be. I think he's inclined to just dribble, beat his man, then reverse, and one of just beats him again. And there's not a great deal of end product.
No, whenever you think of Zaha and you think of watching him, you think of like these dribbling moments that are really impressive. So, you know, beating a man, but you never see the end product, do you? And he hasn't scored a ton, he hasn't assisted a lot either, recently anyway. And even his dribbles per 90, I had a little gander. You know, they were just short of 13 per 90 last season. And That's dropped to just over 11 this season. So his output isn't as good at the moment, and I just don't know if he's the same player. You know, he made it quite clear he wanted to leave in the summer. He nearly did, and I just wonder if he's still got the bit between his teeth.
He was actually linked with Everton, wasn't he? Come to think of it.
Yeah, well, he put a transfer request to try and move.
Yeah.
What a sad little man. No, I'm only kidding, of course. But
I just think he's a bit of a. I don't know. I think he could require coaching on actual his decision making in the final third and what he does once he actually beats his man.
Well, here's one, because we talked about this with the likes of Grealish and McGinn when we were talking about Villa. How high do you think Zaha's ceiling is? I know this is a rabbit hole, but I'm just curious. I think he's a top 6 player.
I think he's a top 6 player, yeah, but not his current game. I think if he was to move to a top 6 team, he'd be expected and required to provide more of an output, basically. I remember Sterling made the move to City, and Guardiola spoke since about, like, one of the things you had to get into Sterling's head was that, like, you know, the goal is there.
Yeah,
and like that's what everything you have to do it has got to be focused towards getting the ball there.
Yeah, funneling it almost to the goal rather than, you know, just the wide areas.
Yeah, just being a bit more efficient, being a bit more focused on actual, like, decisive moments rather than just loads of nice bits of football that don't really add a great deal.
Yeah.
I mean, this season his shots do seem to be a little bit down. I think he's only shooting about 1.5 times a match, which isn't much at all. He's only shot, I said that to you earlier, he's only shot 20 times so far all season, which felt low to me. I didn't actually bother checking comparison to other players, but he's only shot 20 times so far this season, which doesn't feel like much. But I was just going to say, do you think that's perhaps due to the offensive nature of his team?
Yeah.
They're not really an attacking side, are they, at all?
No, yeah, I think they lack it. Everything's kind of built on the transition, isn't it? When the ball back, trying to launch a counter attack, but they're so heavily reliant on Zaha. I don't always think they support him enough in those attacks. So I wonder how many times his attacks just literally peter out in terms of pure lack of options on the ball.
Yeah,
that could explain why his dribbles are slightly down, why his shooting isn't as proficient as you'd expect. I say if he was in a top 6 team, you'd imagine him to be, you know, twice that output. You know, two maybe 3 shots a game. So I think that is a huge factor, because we've seen it with other attack-minded players in other clubs. Like, we were looking a lot at Newcastle recently, weren't we? And the likes of Almiron and the kind of impact, the impact of playing in a side like that has on these attacking players.
Yeah, I mean, just to capture exactly what Liverpool are up against, because obviously we've slated Palace a fair bit in the first 15 minutes there, but just to actually capture what they're like on the attacking side, they're currently bottom of the league for expected goals, second bottom for goals scored, 4th bottom for average possession share, and they've taken the fewest shots in the league, 6 fewer than Sheffield United. So, as I said, when you're portraying this Crystal Palace team as, you know, threatening on the break and that sort of thing, for the large majority, they're not.
Yeah.
They're really, I think cautious is probably the word I'd use, maybe.
Cautious and unambitious.
Yeah, unambitious team, yeah, definitely. And I think it's going to be a case of basically Liverpool, the emphasis being on Liverpool to break them down.
Yeah.
Hence why Trent makes sense. Hence why perhaps you might look at an Naby Keita if he's right to play. You might look at Shaqiri in a 4-2-3-1 if he's right to play. You know, he's back in training. I doubt he'll play, like. And perhaps an Oxlade-Chamberlain, just because of how little offensive threat Palace do tend to offer. Like, even the strikers they've got, I think Christian Benteke, who's obviously renowned, if you look at the XG, as a player who just can't seem to find a net no matter what.
Yeah.
And I've got, I think it's Jordan Ayew, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Not a particularly clinical player, so
no.
It's really going to be attack versus defence, I think, for me, this.
Yeah, kind of ain't more than that. I think I agree. You know, those players you listed there will be important in terms of just disorganising, just creating a bit of chaos and disorganising a defensive structure. You know, you don't want to be too reliant on Trent and Robertson crossing balls into the box. You know, you want to be able to mix up the ways in which you're attacking. Those players could be key.
Well, I was just going to say then that it could be a problem that Robertson's potentially missing the match.
Oh, is he? Yeah.
Because obviously a lot of Liverpool's attacking comes through that. We've talked before about Liverpool switching the play from flank to flank as a means of disrupting the defence.
Yeah, stretching.
That may be less on if Robertson's absent.
Is he looking definitely to be?
The word is that Robertson and Salah are both likely to miss the match.
Yeah.
Which is, might just be smoke, but it's a concern if that's actually true, considering, as I said, it's going to literally be attack versus defence, and if you haven't got those two players, you've instead got Milner and probably Origi, and there's a distinct drop there.
But then, is it important then to play like a Keita then, or someone in that role? And we talked about this before, haven't we, about that being the attacking emphasis on that side? Yeah,
if those players are genuinely out, I'd absolutely look at quite an offensive midfield. Not to the extent where you just running aimlessly into the box and leaving all kinds of vacant space, but just players that are naturally inclined to influence the game in the final third, as opposed to, I don't know, maybe a Henderson who's a bit more, if the ball's lost now, where am I? He's a bit more inclined to think like that, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
Defensively, Crystal Palace, about mid-table, not particularly bad, not particularly good either. Currently 13th in the league for expected goals against, 14th in the league for shots faced.
Would you actually say that they're not great at all defensively? Because although those numbers paint them as mid-table, if you think that they're very much a defence-orientated side, then could you argue then that, if their big focus is on the defensive aspects of the game, they're still not ranking particularly well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna check the expected points now. So Crystal Palace, according to expected points, should be 17th. I think that's right.
So bottom
17th, yeah. And I think
bottom three.
Yeah, I think I looked at it earlier. I think they should have conceded about 19, but I think they've actually conceded 16. And considering most of their positive results have been within a 1-goal margin, if they'd have conceded as many as they should have, they mightn't have got those positive results. They might have got a few draws or things like that rather than wins. So, as I said, I don't feel too threatened. It's just more a case of, will Liverpool be able to break this team down? I'm a little bit concerned about that in comparison to usual, purely because of Robertson and Salah. But on the other hand, still have Trent, still have Mane. We have offensive midfielders if we want to use them. And typically when we're facing these low teams, we don't seem to have any issues really. We do seem to, our record against, bottom 10 teams or something, we have said it previously on the pod, but it's flaws. I can't remember the last time we dropped points to a team like this.
No.
So yeah, I mean, there's not a great deal else to cover. I do think it'll be just attack versus defence. I think Hodgson will show us almost more respect than we deserve. I think he'll be somewhat scared to attack. And I think it'll be very much like the City game in terms of City just trying to break them down for 90 minutes. Palace trying to use counter-attacks, but they're inclined to sit in a block that's so deep that if you do try and counter from there, you've got quite a distance to go.
Yeah, they can't explode quick enough to support the likes of Zaha. So, as I said, Liverpool is so quick to close players down when they look to counter that. By the time they get up to the play or try and catch up to him, ball's already been won back.
Yeah. I mean, I as I said, I do think it'll be attack versus defence. If Liverpool manage to get a breakthrough, then I think it'll be a relatively comfortable match. If that takes a while to happen, like last season, although we did dominate them, although they only took 8 shots against us, we only managed to actually find a breakthrough bang on half time with a penalty through Milner, and we scored again to make it 2-0 last kick of the game. Mane, just open goal. So, it's all about breaking this team down, because they're not going to offer a great deal on the attacking side for me. So just verdict. What do you think? How do you expect?
So I think it'll be a 2-0 Liverpool win, but that doesn't sound a domineering headline. I still think it'll be a dominant performance. I just think sometimes there's that many bodies between the attacking side and the goal. It's just difficult to kind of build a commanding tally in terms of goals. But I still fancy it to be an easy afternoon.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much the same. I also think 2-0. I think I'll go with that myself. I think Liverpool will take, again, roughly around 20 shots. And I think Palace will take certainly below 10. I expect Liverpool to dominate, around 70% possession. Palace will just defend the penalty box for the majority of the match and attack versus defence training until that's genuinely what I'm expecting.
Yeah.
So hopefully that'll be the case, and we'll move on anyway to questions. We obviously had ones left over from last week, which we're going to address for the remainder of the podcast. Obviously, with the international break happening, it's a dead week, isn't it?
Quiet, really? Mate. Yeah,
there's not a great deal going on. So I'll let you take the first one. Yeah,
annoyingly, we still haven't got names, have we? But a lot of people did flag that it was their question when they listened back to the show. So, if you do that, the same. Thank you. But is the 4-2-3-1 going to help us through the Christmas period like last year? Might help reduce sprint volume. I mean, it could do, yes, but what I would say is I feel like the 4-2-3-1 is better deployed for specific opponents using certain individuals as opposed to simply a resting exercise.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Obviously we talked a little bit about using it against sides who sit really deep or deal well with crosses into the box. It can be beneficial, but it needs to be used versus the right opposition is what I'd probably say.
Yeah, I do think we'll use it though.
Yeah,
especially with Shaqiri coming back into the fray. But as you say, I do think it's going to be an attacking ploy against teams like Crystal Palace. To be honest, mainly at Anfield, when you just need to have another attacking player on the pitch rather than saving your energy specifically.
Yeah.
So I was asked, has Firmino's role changed, or has form dipped as the season has progressed? Started the season taking far more shots, which we covered on this podcast. Feels as though it's lessened. So his role certainly hasn't changed for me, but he has reverted to closer to what we're used to. Initially, we did say that he was taking around 4 shots a match. I think 4 shots per 90, which is, put it this way, Salah's average, and he takes the most at Liverpool. Salah's average tends to be around 3.7 per 90. So Firmino was posting 4 early on, but we did say crucially that these are just clues that the likely to even out as the season progresses. Firmino's now in the Premier League and the Champions League an average of 2.77 per 90, which is much closer to his usual. It's still his highest currently at Liverpool. I think last season it was something like 2.6. Season before it was like 2.6. But as the season goes on, I think he'll regress. Well, not regress, but I think revert is better. Yeah, that's a word, isn't it?
Better.
I think he'll just go back to normal. So that initial spike of taking 4 shots per 90 does seem to have dropped, and he now seems to be the normal Firmino again.
But not necessarily a worse player.
No, by no means. No, just maybe letting Salah and Mane do the shooting again.
Yeah, which has really always been the case, hasn't it? Well, since that 3 have developed.
Yeah.
Is there a case to say Henderson and Wijnaldum should only play together when it's against the top 6 or Champions League side, and Keita and Chamberlain play when we know we'll have 65% plus of the ball, because they're better finding key passes, basically? I think it's a good theory. Yeah, I totally get it on paper. A couple of things impact it for me. One's probably the consistent reliability of Chamberlain and Keita, just because I feel like they're close to getting there. Certainly Chamberlain in terms of being integral to the side, but there still just seems when they come in that there's not always a guarantee that they perform at the levels that you require. I don't know if they've quite got the same trust with Klopp yet. Just my opinion. But secondly, I think the system that Liverpool have in place now works perfectly versus the bulk of the opponents that Liverpool come up against.
Yeah.
And it gets the best from the fullbacks. I don't yet see a need to change it so drastically this season. I think both players could be crucial to an evolution of the side further down the line. But for now, I just think the system that Liverpool play, even against the non-perceived top six, is still virtually faultless.
Yeah, no, totally agree on that. I can see the logic behind it, but I think rather than looking at defence, midfield and attack as separate entities, if you like, if you look at it as a whole, the system works because of the lack of risk taking almost in the centre, and the excessive risk taking that takes place everywhere else almost, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think they are useful in certain moments and against certain opposition. But I don't think I think it's proven that even though they're not the biggest risk takers and they're not the most adventurous on the ball, Henderson and Wijnaldum, it's proven, I think, that it's not a problem if everything else works.
Definitely,
basically.
yeah. I think, do you feel like there's just this need to, Liverpool are elite up top, elite wing backs, elite defensively. We want this elite midfield as well. It's always missing the point of the midfield, I think, and its purpose.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you need players that are more inclined to defend. You need players that are more focused on what's going to happen if the ball is lost. You need players that are going to accept the instruction of take fewer risks with the ball or whatever, be a bit more careful kind of thing. Yeah. And, players such as Oxlade-Chamberlain and Keita are more likely to take risks. Sometimes those risks will benefit you, obviously, but sometimes they might cause you a bit of a problem. Yeah. And over the course of a full season, if you can avoid those little errors, little mistakes, then absolutely do it. And I think Chamberlain and Keita perhaps need a little bit more work regarding the decisions in certain moments. Yeah. Certainly Ox, I think. Ox is a bit more... You can tell he's an attacker at heart, so yeah, he wants to go forward, he wants to try things, but sometimes it can result in us being counter-attacked. Yeah. So I was asked, do you think Leicester or Chelsea is better equipped to maintain their form through the rest of the season? And is either team a real threat to Liverpool's title ambitions? Good question. Yeah. I think Chelsea, for me, are definitely the third best team in the league at the minute, undoubtedly. They're getting the results, but they're also getting the performance level as well. Massively outshooting their opponents every match, not facing a great deal on the defensive side, although they are suffering a bit from set pieces and things like that. I like what they're doing regarding bringing through the kids and things, so I am a big fan, to be honest, of what Chelsea are doing at the minute. It's really surprising. Yeah, it is. I've said it before, but it is a little bit of an eye-wiping moment for us because we were quite cautious, weren't we, of Lampard going in at Chelsea, and it looked to be a disaster, really. It was more a case of you have no idea what you're getting. Yeah, well, exactly. If you look at a club size at Chelsea, we're trying to. Yeah, if you want to look at, if you want to minimise risk and use data to analyse whether a manager is a good investment or not, and you looked at Lampard's numbers, you would have just got the vibe that we have no idea. Could be great, could be terrible. Yeah. So it's a risk that he took. It's paid off. I don't think it's a risk Liverpool would have took, but there you go. I suppose they're still reaping the benefits, but and Leicester, a little bit of a different story. I do think they're the fourth best team in the league at the minute, but they have benefited a lot from just luck, player quality, red cards and things like that. They've currently scored double their expected goals. Yeah, which is if you follow the XG, that will come back. That will come back and get you. It's just what it does for whatever reason. It's just can't escape it forever, can you? Yeah, it'll come back and get you eventually. Yeah, and on the defensive side, it's not to the extent that they're overperforming double, but they are conceding less than expected. And as I said, over time, we see it with plenty of clubs. I think Solskjaer is probably a good example. It's not the same as that. They're still, as I said, they're still the fourth best team in the league. But when you do overperform and you benefit like this, eventually, if you're looking at the numbers like that, XG does suggest that Leicester aren't as good as this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that one pans out.
Oh yeah, okay.
What's it, mate?
Yeah, I forgot where we were up to be honest. I was too busy getting engrossed in the Leicester stuff.
Thinking about Rodgers.
Yeah. Sancho on the LFC radar. Would he be a good fit for Liverpool? Now, you obviously wrote a big piece on him, didn't you? That's definitely worth checking out. Where can people find it, just in case they haven't?
It's on Liverpool Echo, and it's also being created into a video, top quality video as well. So check the Blood Red YouTube channel if you can't be bothered reading and you want to instead watch, because it's narrated and it's captured through video. So I'd definitely check that one out.
It is very good. In short, though, yeah, he would be a really, really good fit for Liverpool. The obvious thing is he's versatile, he's skillful, creates goals, he scores them. But, we've spoke about the evolution of the side in the coming years as well. He's just 19. He's 19. He can have it, like, he can be the next stage of Liverpool while still contributing to this side today. For me, just be a perfect player, and someone who could potentially fill the boots of one of that front three. Probably, would you say Mane?
It's tricky with him because he plays on both flanks.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that I wrote in the piece. He's right-footed, so you'd think Mane, because Mane's obviously on the left, cutting inside. But at Dortmund, I think he's mainly played on the right. But so you'd think he's like a traditional Beckham winger, but he's still not. He's quite two-footed anyway.
Yeah.
But it just depends exactly what you want from him.
But that's what, touching on the versatile point, said that's what's so great about him, isn't it, really? He can do multiple roles. He's such a special talent.
Really good player.
Yeah, if Liverpool bought him, that'd be an unbelievable signing.
I think rather than me elaborating on that, I'll go on to the next one, which is a little bit of a joint question, I think. But if you guys had the power and the pace, who would be your top 3 realistic targets in the coming transfer window? I'm going to say now, we will. I'd be amazed if we signed anyone in January. I just don't think it'll happen. Klopp's a German coach for the start, and January is just considered as emergencies only, and I don't think Liverpool really have an emergency, or certainly don't yet anyway. But I think I haven't really got 3 targets that are in mind at the minute anyway that I actually want to target. I think Liverpool are really comfortable at the minute.
I said to you, didn't I, before we started recording, I was like, I really struggle with these questions from a Liverpool point of view, because I don't feel like I can add any hidden gem at the moment who come in and impact this side. I've said, you can, you're probably about to say Timo Werner. But
well, I was going to say, if Liverpool do have any areas to address, for me, it can only be a proper decent backup to the front 3, and certainly a backup left back, and possibly a backup right back if you want to move Joe Gomez away from that. So looking at the front 3, for me, Timo Werner's the player that I want. For a start, he'll cost considerably less than Jadon Sancho, which is why I'm not exactly certain that one will happen. I'd like it to. I think he's very suited to Liverpool, very, very high ceiling. But I think Liverpool are a bit more economic in how they go about things, and Sancho's going to cost upwards of 150 million, I think.
Yeah.
Considering he's like an English potential Ballon d'Or winner.
Yeah, because you've got potentially 3 or 4 clubs realistically you'd be vying for, and you've got Liverpool and then 2 Manchester clubs. Yeah.
Whereas if you compare that to Timo Werner, I think he signed a new deal in the summer, but I think it was with a release clause, a realistic one as well. He's quite young. He's basically, if you look at his numbers, it's crazy how much he looks like a right-footed version of Mo Salah. He takes virtually exactly the same amount of shots per 90. Dribbles about the same. They're both about the same height, but short and stocky, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Quick over short spaces. Werner's about, something like 3 or 4 years younger. And he's learning as well under Julian Nagelsmann right now at RB Leipzig. Apparently he's learning the false 9 role as well.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Yeah, he can incorporate all that to his game, can't he? He's
so
he's like a hybrid.
Yeah, for me, he's a player that would literally allow complete fluidity across the whole front three. Make a great deal of sense for me. And he's German as well, which coincides with Klopp.
Yeah.
And another player that I just thought was worth mentioning, I mean, just as a, the general type that I think we'll be after is Jamal Lewis.
Yeah.
Left back. Obviously Norwich. Because I don't think we'll be inclined to sign a player to compete with Robertson and like that. But we'll sign a player with long-term potential. And I think Jamal Lewis is, physically built, athletic, quick up the line, good on the ball. If Norwich get relegated, he'll be relatively cheap. So for me, he's just an option in there that I'd like to throw in there in terms of he'd make sense, homegrown as well.
Yeah. Who's the other guy on the other wing, on the other flank for Norwich?
That's Max Aarons, but I haven't been as impressed by him at all.
He didn't. It doesn't look like he's adjusted as well, does he?
He's not as physically built either, and I don't think he's as ready as Lewis is.
Yeah,
Lewis looks to me as though he's got a higher
maybe
ceiling.
someday though he could get up there. He could, he's still young, isn't he? So potentially he could still be a top player eventually.
Next question.
Yeah. So we talked about revisiting.
Oh yeah, go on.
Yeah, which this wasn't a question, was it? This is just something that we kind of talked about.
Yeah, this is a point I want to make.
Yeah. So basically, we spoke not so long ago about who's best equipped to take points from Liverpool this season.
Yeah, we were asked this in their last international break as a question.
Off the top of my head, I believe it was United at Old Trafford and maybe Everton at Goodison, but solely just because of and obviously City as well.
City wasn't in the question. City was like, who's best equipped outside City?
Oh, it was, of course, yeah. So it was basically the emotional aspects of the game that
United actually came through as well. We dropped points.
Yeah, they did, yeah. So same with Goodison, maybe.
Well, hopefully not.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just quickly anyway. Who's best equipped to take points from Liverpool? But
it's one that we want to. One that we want to revisit.
But why do we want to revisit, Josh?
Well, because for me, it's Jose Mourinho's Spurs.
That changed the landscape a bit, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. Especially considering our next fixture with them's away. I think I've been quite surprised at how much he's been slated since he got the job, because I accept that some of his methods seem relatively out of date now, but you've got to put into perspective how terrible the United job was to have at the time, just a shambles of a club at the minute in terms of how they ran.
I think he's really, really good at adapting tactics to nullify the strengths of the opposition, isn't he?
He's a master of that, yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes people can perceive that as being defensive. But it is a tactic and he's very good at it. And just a quick caveat I want to put in there is the fact that he's been away from the game for 12 months. He hasn't had any pressures from a club. He's just been able to watch the game out of the bubble.
New assistants as well.
Yeah, and I wonder just how much of that he's going to be able to analyse Liverpool's game as well.
Yeah, no,
he's the perfect pantomime villain for Liverpool, isn't he?
Yeah, no, he's labelled as a defensive coach quite often, I think. But for me, I think a better way to describe him is strategic. I think I'd describe him as
definitely
adjusting based on the strength of the opposition. And I think he's done quite well whenever we've went away to Mourinho teams. He's good at nullifying our front three and things like that. And I just think if we get to that point of the season and we're still unbeaten and we go away to a Mourinho team at home, I know what he's like.
Yeah.
He will not want us to be unbeaten. And I can just see that being a tricky fixture.
Do you think on top of all that he'll probably still have a little bit of a grudge for that was the Anfield game, that was his last at United?
Yeah, well, it got him the sack, really, didn't it, I suppose? So yeah, I think we'll have to end on that one anyway.
Yeah, we'll delve into that definitely pre that fixture. That'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be good. So a bit of a shorter podcast this week, but blame the international break for that one.
By the way, if everyone just give Josh credit, because believe me when I tell you, his throat is really bad and he's done well to do probably around a 40-minute pod today.
Yeah, 3 podcasts in 24 hours. So we will be back next week to assess how Palace went, how Napoli went, and we'll look ahead to, I think it's Brighton.
It is Brighton, definitely, yeah. Brighton at Anfield.
Yeah, so thanks for tuning in. Dave, thanks for joining us.
Cheers, mate. See you
next week.